What's up, y'all? Welcome to, I don't even know what episode it is anymore. I'll find out when I upload this thing, but it is Sunday, June 28th. It is just after 5 p.m., and I'll be honest, I don't want to record this today. I am beat. Taught again for about 3.5 hours today. And yeah, didn't sleep well last night, and yeah, here we are. But this is the process of devotion. This is what this whole thing is teaching me. Is I learned so much more about myself when I don't want to do it, and I do it anyway. It feels better when I do it when I don't want to do it. I learn to trust myself more when I do it when I don't want to do it. And on and on and on. And I'm feeling, yeah, I don't want to call it in a process. And I'm not going to do a random topic today. Excuse me. I'm going to talk about what's alive. Because I think it has to do with what I've been speaking to so often, where it's like I'll be in the middle of a process, or I'll have a part come online, or a story, or whatever it is. Something rears its head, and then I'm in it for 2 days, and then I come out of it. Like, that's never been me throughout my life. And it's been very alive that way for the last 6 months. And I think this is, not even think, I know. Like, there's also a part of me where I keep saying I think when there's things I know. This is how I see the world, and I'm going to stand in and own that. I believe that I'm given prophetic vision sometimes. I believe that the information that comes to me is so perfect. It's like I just have spent so much of my life denying this knowing I've had about certain things. And I need this confirmation outside of me to believe something I believe within myself. And I'm done with that too. Oh, man. I'm in this place right now where I see a lot of people in my life, people I know well, people I don't know very well. I hear it in conversations in my coaching sessions, in my community, my cohort. A lot of people are activated. A lot of everybody, almost, virtually everybody I talk to has something alive that they're moving through. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people projecting their shit on the people around them, not taking radical ownership and responsibility for everything moving in their life. And they're looking for the scapegoat. You're the reason it's this way. You're the reason it's that way. Well, you did this and you said, and it's like, yo, everybody, y'all, me included, if we don't take radical and total and complete and constant ownership and responsibility for every single thing in our life, it only ends one way. Giving your power away and being victim to something. And it's the only thing that stops us from taking ownership of who we are. We're powerful, creative beings. And I think that the reason, I know, I think I know, even that's exhausting to dabble in that constantly. We're looking at the end of the world, people. And I don't mean that literally as in the world is going to end because of nuclear war. I mean the world that we have known. We're witnessing the end of everything we have known. And I have a profound belief. I've received visions of this. I've received dreams of this. The mantids have shown me about this. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about what they showed me about the next 3 years too. That we are moving through a very, very catalytic period of time right now. And as we go through this transformation, this split into dimensional realities, like we're going to have a choice on the new world that we choose to live in. Are we going to choose love and ownership and responsibility? Or are we going to choose fear and blame and victimization? And so all of these parts of us that we need to make a conscious choice about in order to choose which world we're going to live in are going to start showing their heads. They already are. I see it reflected in many of the people in my life. I have been the punching bag for many of their own shit that they're not seeing within themselves, and it's okay. I'm here to play that role. It's a gift because I know I'm the safe space for them to put something down, and I am not carrying that shit for them. And I know a lot of us are going through this. And it's all a representation of like these parts of us have to be seen in order to give us the opportunity to choose consciously what path we want to walk. And when I look at this period of time, one of my investigator hats that I wore for a while is I went deep into this. And in this period of time that we're in, 2020 to 2032 type time period, has been prophesied for decades, centuries, millennia, generations. There's been books about it, psychics, mediums, aborigines, the indigenous, like everywhere you look. This book, The Fourth Turning, talks about it, that we are in the winter, and in the winter everything dies. Society goes through these 20 to 25 year cycles, these seasons, and we ride these waves. And there's a winter, spring, summer, and fall. And this book predicted the 2008 crash within a year, predicted 2020 within a year, and some other things. And it traces back this cyclical time going all the way back to the Roman civilization, and have all these markers continue to perpetuate themselves. And what this book states is that this winter is going to end sometime around 2030 to 2032, and we're going to enter the spring, which is going to be the next golden age. And then you have prophecy that are from like the Lakota and the Hopi and the Zulu and the Zuni and the Aborigines and the Red Nation, and on and on and on. You have all these indigenous cultures around the world that have also pointed to this period of time. This reminds me of the Hopi prophecy. Let me look that up. I'm going to read about the Hopi prophecy because this shit is wild, y'all. Yeah, all right. I'll read that in a second. So you have all these indigenous cultures that have been prophesying about this. And then there's some very talented channelers and prophets that I respect, and I believe in their wisdom that comes through them. Some that I know personally, some that I've worked with, some that I follow online, that also point to this period of time, that things are coming. Bashar talks about this. He's been talking about 2025 to 2028 for over a decade before any of this chaos. Mary Margrave, and others. And then you have the likes of like Richard Rudd, the author of the Gene Keys, that 20-something years ago prophesied about 2027. He called it the year of the dragonfly. And that essentially what's going to happen in 2027 is the human genome goes from a double helix to a triple helix structure. And think about what energy and matter is. Everything is light, condensed down into a low vibrational state, which we consider matter, and matter and everything we experience as the physical realm is just light that has been slowed enough to manifest itself. My brain's not working, but I think you get the point. And so literally our DNA holds information, it holds light codes. That's what our DNA is. It's information, and all information is just light, made material. And so think about the concept of the year of the dragonfly, going from a double helix to a triple helix DNA strand. Excuse me, I need some water. That means we literally are going to be able to hold 50% more light information. What does a human become when we can hold 50% more light? Or 150% more light, I guess is the more appropriate way to say it. Like, what do we even become? What does that even mean? What does that even mean? And the reason he calls that the year of the dragonfly is, I can't remember the percentages, but a dragonfly spends a majority of its life in the water. And then it bursts into the most deadly, it's got like a 99% kill rate. It's the most deadly flight. Oh, my words. It's the deadliest aerial assault thing. What's happening right now? Yeah, you get what I mean. It's like the most deadly aerial assault. I was going to say vehicle, but like it's not a bird either. It's the highest kill ratio of things that fly. That's what I'm trying to get to. Right? So it goes from this underwater thing that's like swimming around, and so you ever see it in the water, it looks like a tadpole kind of snaky. That's not a good description. Just look it up. And then it becomes everything that we know, this like vibrant dragonfly. It's incredible. And so he talks about the reason he calls it the year of the dragonfly is because we can't even comprehend what happens next year. And Terence McKenna talked about this in his novelty theory. Terence McKenna is the stoned ape theory guy. I've talked about him before, but he talked about this novelty theory where it's like so much information is coming at us so much, so fast every day. And it's like we're just spinning in this vortex of so much information, so much newness, so much novelty. And now with AI, that was like way before AI was even on the table. And that literally everything is happening so fast that we wake up one day and everything is different. We wake up one day in a completely different world in reality, and we remember everything we left, but it's as if it was a dream because it's that distant from everything we know now. So you have like Terence McKenna, you have the Hopi, the Zulu, the Aborigines, the Fourth Turning, Richard Rudd. You have all of these prophetic visions pointing to this period of time. Dolores Cannon talks about this. On and on, y'all. And I think that's why we're all moving through things with such veracity. Those of us that are willing to look, a lot of us are still numbing. A lot of people in the world are still numbing. They're moving through it, but they don't want to look at it. So they numb with cannabis. I've been guilty of that. Alcohol, TV, sex, pornography, pharmaceuticals, work, money, materialism. Numbing. But for those of us that are looking at it, staring the thing in the face and saying, yeah, this fucking sucks. What's here for me? This is why I think things are happening with such a high magnitude and why it's so heavy. Because there's that depth of purpose into it. You know, we're meant to be way showers of the new world in many ways. We're meant to bring people with us. One of the things that the Mantid showed me, I wish I had my journal up here. One of the things that the Mantid showed me, you know, and I don't say this to instill fear. I say this because it allows us to choose something other than fear. But one thing they showed us, and I don't want to get too much into the visions that I was shown, but one of the things they showed me was in 2027 that the world accumulatively hits the peak fear frequency. So it's like the accumulation of everybody in the world. We reach the peak fear frequency we have ever experienced. That's going to happen sometime next year. And the reason a lot of us are doing this work is to raise our own individual vibration and frequency. And the higher frequency I go, the more I'm able to hold the lower frequency emotions that I'm in. And David Hawkins talks about this. It's some scale of like a high frequency being can offset 1,000 low frequency beings, something along those lines. I'm sure somebody here will know. Drop in the comments if that's you. And this is why we're doing the work. This is why we're looking. This is why I believe the intelligence of the psychedelic medicines. There's no accident that these things came back at this point in time, these intelligent consciousness that called us back to nature. These are, when we work with psychedelics, we're working with frequency. We're communing with a high frequency consciousness and learning from the experience of that. That's what healing is. Healing is if this is my baseline frequency and I raise it, I'm also lowering the lower level that I had because everything moves in equilibrium. And when I raise that lower level, I get to look at my shit. I get to look at my shadow. This is microdosing. If this is my baseline and I barely go up, I'm also barely bringing to the surface what's right there. That's why microdosing is so powerful. It's bringing up what's just under the surface that wants to be seen. But when I do ayahuasca, I'm scooping a shovel way deep down into the darkness of my shadow because that's the equivalent of what ayahuasca is allowing me to bring up in myself. It's all frequency. And so the reason a lot of us are being called to this work is because we're meant to hold the frequency of fear. We're meant to be able to hold ourselves in it, to stand inside of that fear, of that greed, of that shadow, of that scarcity, of that hate, of that judgment, of that shame, of that guilt. When the world hits that frequency as a peak, we get to be anchors to bring other people with us into this new world, into that conscious choice, into the realm of love. That's what I know is happening right now. That's how I see it. This is why I have so much gratitude and acceptance for all things as it is, because I have a role to play. And people that don't do this work, that haven't experienced psychedelics, that are still so trapped in the matrix, they'll listen to what I'm saying and call me a quack. What a fucking loser. You're talking about love? Says the guy who can't stop screaming at his kids and can't even love his wife fully. Like, I've been afraid of what those people think about me my whole life. My own family, my old friends, I'll have people I haven't talked to in 10 years will pop in my mind, like I'm worried about what they think when I post. And it's like, this is the things I'm trying to break down within myself. Fuck all that. I trust that we are moving through a massive evolution of humanity right now. And we cannot keep fucking around. Talking to me, I can't keep fucking around. I can't keep being inauthentic and not showing up and speaking my truth and using my voice. Because one day people are going to wake up and realize, like, oh my God, all the signs were there. I just wasn't willing to listen. And how many more people can we help by speaking our truth and standing in our knowing? This is what I think we're moving through. I'm going to read the Hopi prophecy because it's wild. Okay. The Hopi hold that we are living in the fourth world, and that each previous world was destroyed when humanity fell out of right relationship with the earth, with the Creator, and with each other. The first world ended by fire, the second by ice, the third by flood. Talk about the biblical flood. We're told the fourth world will also come to a close, and that humanity will either pass into the fifth world through a great purification or be destroyed by its own imbalance. The emergence into the fifth world is a hopeful pull, a return to harmony, to the original instructions. So in the 1950s, this guy, what was his name? Whitefeather of the Bear Clan, recorded something in the 1950s talking about the Hopi prophecy to bring this to the masses in the Western world. And the Hopi prophecy, I believe this prophecy is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old, maybe even longer. I don't even know. And they said that there was 9 signs that represented the ending of the fourth world and the beginning of the fifth world, or the option point, the choice point into that destruction or the birth of new humanity. And this is where I believe both exist. We get to choose. We choose what path. Do I choose the path where my belief systems puts me in the dimensional reality where things get destroyed? Or do I choose that I'm putting myself on the path of the dimensional reality in the timeline where everything becomes beautiful? I believe we're that powerful. I believe that's how time works. So the 9 signs are as such. Here's where it gets wild. So the first sign was and get this. This was told before any of these things happened. And then I'm going to give you the things that happened that we can assume represented that prophecy. So the first sign was the coming of white-skinned men to take the land and strike their enemies with thunder. So think about this. This is before any Europeans ever came to America. They were talking about this prophecy. White-skinned men, the Europeans, come to America and strike their enemies with thunder. Gunfire. How wild is that? How wild is that? That's just nutty. Okay, second sign. Spinning wheels filled with voices, which we can interpret as covered wagons pioneering across the plains, or cars, vehicles. Pretty wild. Spinning wheels filled with voices. The third sign, a strange beast like a buffalo, but with great long horns, overrunning the land in large numbers. Longhorn cattle. They brought those here. Bison used to be the animal of the Americas. Millions and millions and millions of bison. That's a really sad story. Maybe I'll go into the history of that one. I don't even know what this thing, all of a sudden it's a history podcast. I don't know. Looking at the bison. The buffalo nickel, the 5-cent nickel. There's a whole beautiful story of that as well. That's actually the painted of a buffalo from the New York Zoo. And the reason his head's down is buffalo's heads are typically up. The reason his head down is because the buffalo is depressed. Anyway, somebody won an art contest, so they put the buffalo on the nickel because the buffalo used to be the dominant ruminant through all of North America. So that was the third sign, a strange beast-like buffalo with long horns, the cattle. The fourth sign, the land crossed by snakes of iron, railroads. Again, these were prophesied before any of this happened. And they prophesied hundreds and hundreds of years before that the land would be crossed with snakes of iron, and then the railroads came. Okay, the fifth sign, The land crisscrossed by a giant spider's web. This one gets nuts because we could think about that as the World Wide Web, the internet, the World Wide Web, or power lines is kind of how they interpret that. That's the fifth sign. The sixth sign, the land crossed by rivers of stone that make pictures in the sun, interpreted as paved concrete roads and highways, and the shimmering of mirages because of the heat that they give off. Why do you think the temperature is rising? A lot of our temperature gauges are at airports or downtown, and we have these concrete cities and wonder why the earth is heating up. But if you go and measure that shit in the forests and mountains, it hasn't changed in thousands of years. Or paved, everything, concrete, this rock. That's the sixth sign. Seventh sign, the sea turning black and many of the living things dying off. Oil spills? What? Interpreted as oil spills and ocean pollution. Wow. That's the seventh sign. The eighth sign, many young people who wear their hair long, like the native peoples, coming to join the tribal nations to learn their ways and wisdom. Interpreted as the 60s and 70s counterculture, the hippie movement, and the wave of young people drawn into indigenous spirituality. Is that not most alive today? First thing I did when I quit my corporate job, I wore a suit every day to work for over a decade. And I had this like comb over. I had all these different haircuts in the years, but it was always gelled and propped and prim and trimmed. And I would get a haircut every week. And the day I quit my job, I stopped cutting my hair. I started growing my long hair, and I haven't had long hair since. And I donated 16 suits to Goodwill. I kind of regret that part because I had some nice suits in there. But I was like, fuck everything of that old life. And so that's the eighth sign. Has that not been the last 50 years? How wild is that? And then the ninth sign. A dwelling place in the heavens, above the earth, that falls with a great crash and appears as a blue star. They call it the blue star Kachina. After this, the prophecy says, the ceremonies of the Hopi people will cease and the great purification will be near. So, there's a 1979 space station that fell. Some people think that might have been it. You have satellites that fall. But here's the fascinating thing. The International Space Station is set to be decommissioned in 2030, I believe. If that's not a home dwelling in the sky. Hopi prophecy. It's one of my favorite ones. So this is the period of time we're in. I think the next 18 months get wild. I think I'm going to do a podcast soon because I think it's coming soon, but this is why we're seeing all systems fall. All systems that are rooted in deceit and lies are not congruent with the new world. Politics, education, media, journalism, food. I mean, you name it. Financial. I think that we are coming up. It could be tomorrow. It could be a year from now. I don't know. What I do know is it's coming. I know way too much about the financial realm to know that everything that's happening right now makes any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The stock market makes no sense. The SpaceX IPO makes no sense. We're in an AI bubble. The housing market's screwed. Debt's at an all-time high. Delinquencies, foreclosures. And I think it's all a distraction, a purposely collapse the finance system that's rooted in fiat, fake money, to implement the new digital age, these crypto technologies. And in that is where there's going to be the potential for the dystopian technocratic future. You know they want to bring it in. And in that, we have the opportunity to become financially free. That's what I think's happening right now. And that's what a big part of me knows is happening right now. I believe in all these prophecies. When there's the way I like to look at and this doesn't even bring in everything that the astrology is saying about right now. I don't know enough about it to rip it off the top of my head like I could all those things, but the astrology points to this period of time as well. And so when astrology and energetics and channelers and mediums and psychics and prophecy and books and science, when everything points to one specific thing, when so many different angles are talking about the exact same thing from a different lens, there's truth to that in my opinion. And so this is why we're being confronted. This is why Epstein files are coming to their head, why our own shadows and distortions are making their way through, why relationships are falling apart, why jobs are being taken away, why AI is coming in right now. It's all symbolism for the times. And it's about how we navigate these that mean the most. That feels complete. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for letting me riff for 25 minutes. Hopefully this was interesting because it's so fascinating to me. Love you all so much. Have a blessed Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow.